Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. You know, we like to take these deep dives into the clinical data, and today we're diving into datopotamab deruxtecan, DXD, right? Or as it's now known by its brand name, Datroway.
Datroway.
This is recently FDA approved.
Yeah, just this last January.
I know a lot of our listeners are probably pretty familiar with this drug already.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's been generating a lot of buzz.
It has.
Especially for those of us, who are in the pharmaceutical industry, right? But we're going to really dig deep into the nitty-gritty details today.
Absolutely.
So for those who maybe aren't as familiar with Dato-DXd, can you just give us a quick 30-second overview?
Sure. So datopotamab deruxtecan, or Dato-DXd as we often call it, is a TROP2-directed antibody drug conjugate.
An ADC.
An ADC, yes. And that means it basically targets the TROP2 protein, which is found on the surface of many types of cancer cells.
And ADCs themselves aren't new, right?
No, they're not.
So what makes Dato-DXd unique or interesting, or what should our listeners be paying attention to here?
Yeah, so Dato-DXd is interesting because of its payload, which is a topoisomerase I inhibitor. And this is delivered through this unique cleavable linker.
Okay.
And this linker is designed to be super stable in the bloodstream.
Okay.
And that's key for a couple of reasons. First, it means the payload is much less likely to be released
prematurely before it reaches the tumor.
Right, exactly.
Which is, obviously a big deal for safety and tolerability.
Huge consideration there.
Yeah.
And second, the linker is designed to really only release the payload in the tumor environment.
So you're getting that concentrated dose right where it's needed.
Exactly.
I see.
And this linker technology is pretty novel. I think a lot of your listeners would find interesting to look into. I'm
sure they would, especially from a drug design perspective.
Exactly.
So we've got this, ADC with this unique linker technology, and it's targeting this TROP2 protein.
Right.
So what's the big news here in terms of regulatory approval?
So the FDA granted accelerated approval for Datroway back in January of this year, 2025. And this means that adult patients with a particular type of breast cancer, unresectable or metastatic hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative breast cancer.
So these are patients who have already...
Yeah, they've gone through prior endocrine-based therapy.
If they've exhausted a lot of the other options.
Yes, and chemotherapy for unresectable or metastatic disease.
So this is we're talking about a patient population that's really, they've been through a lot already.
Absolutely. It's a difficult to treat group, for sure.
And this approval was based on some promising results from the TROPION-Breast-AF1 trial,
right,
which was a global phase 3 study.
A large one, too.
Yeah, so let's talk about that trial. What were the key findings there that led to this accelerated approval?
So the trial basically compared Dato-DXd with the investigator's choice of chemotherapy. And the results showed that there was a very statistically significant and clinically meaningful improvement in progression-free survival, PFS, in the Dato-DXd arm.
And what were those numbers?
Well, the median PFS was 6.9 months with Dato-DXd versus 4.9 months with chemotherapy.
So a difference of 2 months.
2 months, which is significant in this setting.
Right. I mean, and, in the context of advanced cancer, that can be quite impactful.
Absolutely.
But were there any, notable differences in terms of the types of chemotherapy regimens used in that control arm?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, the trial allowed for a variety of regimens.
Yeah.
So, pretty common ones that are used in clinical practice, but that does introduce a bit of variability.
Of course.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit harder to compare apples to apples.
It does. And the publication goes into more detail about specific regimens if your listeners are interested.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll want to check that out. And speaking of the publication, before we move on, let's talk about the safety profile. Because, that's always top of mind, especially with ADCs.
Yes.
So what can you tell us about the safety and tolerability of Datroway?
Well, the data from the trial suggests that Datroway has a manageable safety profile.
Okay.
Like any cancer treatment, there are side effects.
Of course.
But the most common ones were things like stomatitis,
Right.
nausea, fatigue, decreases in certain blood cell counts.
Okay, and those are all, relatively common with chemotherapy anyway.
Right, not unexpected.
Okay, so manageable side effects.
Yeah.
But were there any specific concerns that, you think our listeners should be aware of?
Well, one thing that we always have to be cautious about with ADCs is the potential for interstitial lung disease.
ILD.
ILD, exactly.
Yeah.
And, thankfully, the rate of ILD observed in this trial was pretty low. Yeah. It was about 4.2%.
Okay, so less than 5%. Yeah. But this is a relatively short-term study.
That's true. We need longer-term data to get a fuller picture.
Right. So continued monitoring is going to be essential. Also, especially once this drug, gets out into the real world. For sure. Okay, so we've talked about the drug itself. We talked about, the trial data, the safety profile. But let's shift gears a little bit now and talk about the competitive landscape.
Okay.
Because, Dato-DXd, it's not coming into an empty field.
No, it's not.
There are other ADCs out there, especially for breast cancer. So how does Dato-DXd fit into that landscape?
Well, it's interesting because you've got other ADCs that have already been approved, like Enhertu and Trodelvy.
Right.
And they've shown efficacy in different subtypes of breast cancer.
Right. So, they all have their own unique niches.
They do, and that's what makes it interesting for us as scientists.
Right. It's not just about market share. It's about the science.
The innovation and how these different drugs are designed and what they target.
Exactly.
And what's fascinating is that there are over 20 other TOP2 ADCs currently in development. So, they're all competing in a sense.
Yeah, they're all trying to get a piece of the pie.
They are.
So what do you think are the key factors that are going to determine which of these ADCs are ultimately going to succeed?
Well, first and foremost, it's going to come down to efficacy.
Of course.
Which ADC shows the best tumor shrinkage?
Right, the most durable responses.
Exactly. We need to see that overall survival data.
Right, that's the gold standard.
It is. But, of course, safety and tolerability are also hugely important.
Right, you can have a drug that's super effective.
Right.
But if it comes with, really severe side effects, nobody's going to use it. No, it's not going to be widely adopted.
Exactly. So you need that balance.
That risk-benefit
profile has to be favorable.
Absolutely.
And what about other factors, like beyond efficacy and safety?
Well, things like ease of administration are important.
Okay.
A drug that's really complex to administer or has stringent storage requirements.
It's going to be less appealing.
It is.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can't forget about the economic factor.
The cost.
The cost effectiveness.
Yeah, that's going to play a huge role.
Especially in today's world.
Absolutely.
So it's a complicated equation.
Yeah, it's a lot to consider.
It is.
But that's what makes it so interesting, right?
It does. It does. And, for those of us in the pharmaceutical industry, this is what we live for.
Right. We've got to stay on top of all this.
We do. The ADC field is evolving so rapidly.
It is. So let's dive a little deeper now into the specifics of Dato-DXd's mechanism of action.
Okay.
You mentioned that the payload is a topoisomerase I inhibitor.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Well, as senior medical scientists, I'm sure you're all familiar with the topoisomerase inhibitors, but what's interesting here is this specific inhibitor that's used in Dato-DXd.
Okay.
And, the publications that we've got for this depth dive, they really go into the pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic properties.
Okay.
And they highlight its potency and its selectivity.
I'm sure our listeners are going to want to, really dig into those details. They should, because it's always fascinating to see how those subtle differences in molecular structure can have such profound effects clinically.
It really is. And, this is where the expertise of your listeners comes in. They're the ones who can really appreciate these nuances.
And that's really, what we try to do with the Duck Dive is to, give our listeners those insights that they need to really stay on the cutting edge.
Absolutely.
So let's shift our focus now a little bit to the future of Dato-DXd.
Okay.
This approval is a major milestone. Yeah, it is, but it's clearly just the beginning.
It's the first step.
Yeah, so what's on the horizon for this drug?
Well, there's a big global development program underway.
Okay.
And they're looking at its potential in a number of other cancer types.
Okay, so what other cancers are in the crosshairs?
One of the most exciting areas is non-small cell lung cancer.
Lung cancer.
Yes, which is a leading cause of cancer deaths worldwide.
A huge unmet need.
It is.
And TROP2 is expressed in a lot of lung cancers.
It is a significant proportion, yeah.
So same target, different disease.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they're also looking at other types of breast cancer.
Right.
Particularly triple-negative breast cancer.
Okay.
Which, as you know, is a very aggressive disease.
Yeah, that one's a tough one to crack.
It is. It is.
So these are definitely trials to watch.
They are.
What about combination therapies?
Oh, yeah, that's a hot area.
Is that something that's being explored with Dato-DXd?
It is, for sure. There are studies looking at combining it with other anti-cancer agents. Like immunotherapy drugs?
Immunotherapy. Now, that's a hot topic. It is. Harnessing the body's own immune system.
Exactly.
So it could be a powerful combination.
Absolutely a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, so it sounds like the research landscape for Dato-DXd is really expanding rapidly.
It is. It is.
But, with so many trials going on, it can be hard to keep track.
It can.
So what would you say are the key studies that our listeners should be paying the closest attention to?
Well, the trials in lung cancer and triple-negative breast cancer are definitely high on the list. Okay. Those could be really game-changing if they're positive.
Yeah, expanding the use of this drug to a much wider patient population. Exactly. Okay, so those are the big ones to watch.
Yes.
But beyond those specific trials, what are some of the broader implications of this research?
Well, I think one of the key takeaways is the power of collaboration. Dato-DX is a product of a partnership between AstraZeneca and Daiichi Sankyo.
Two big players
In the pharmaceutical industry.
And they've been able to really accelerate the development of this drug.
So a win-win.
A win-win for them and for patients ultimately.
Exactly.
And I think beyond that, Dato-DX really highlights the importance of targeted therapies.
Right.
ADCs represent a major advancement in our ability to deliver these potent drugs directly to the cancer cells.
and
Minimize that damage to healthy tissues.
Exactly. And that's really a cornerstone of modern
oncology drug development. And an approach that I think is only going to become more important.
Oh, absolutely.
As we learn more about cancer.
Absolutely. The more we understand the molecular drivers, the better we can develop these targeted therapies that can really, shut down those pathways.
Speaking of specific molecular drivers, let's talk about TOP2 for a minute. Now, why is this particular target generating so much excitement in oncology?
Well, what's really interesting about TOP2 is that it's overexpressed in a lot of different solid tumors.
Not just breast cancer.
Not just breast cancer. We're talking lung, pancreas, bladder, and more.
So a single target with multiple potential applications.
Exactly. And that's where we're seeing so much investment in TOP2-directed therapies.
Right. Makes sense.
It's a hot area right now.
It's a hot area. It is so, it's an exciting time to be working in oncology drug development.
It is.
So much progress is being made. And these new therapies like Dato-DXd are giving hope to patients who previously had very limited options. So it's really remarkable to witness. It is. All these advancements unfolding.
It really is.
And the best part is we're really just scratching the surface.
We are.
There's so much more to discover.
Absolutely.
So much more potential to unlock.
I agree.
And that's, really what keeps us coming back to the deep dive.
It does.
Is to explore these cutting edge developments.
Yes.
And share them with our listeners.
Now, before we move on, though, I think it's worth taking a step back.
Okay.
And thinking about the bigger picture.
Okay.
What are the broader implications of Dato-DXd's success?
That's a great question.
What does it tell us about the future of the ADC field?
Yeah, I think Dato-DXd's journey is a really compelling case study.
It is.
So the whole ADC field.
It really is.
It demonstrates that ADCs can be
really effective.
Even in patients who have failed multiple other therapies.
Right. And it also highlights the importance of innovation. Right. In ADC design.
Right, exactly. And remember, the success of Dato-DXd is partly due to that unique linker technology, which enhances both stability and targeted delivery.
So it's not just about finding the right target.
No.
It's also about optimizing the delivery system.
It is. And I think we're going to see even more sophisticated ADC designs emerging in the future.
Okay.
With novel linkers, payloads, and targeting strategies.
So the ADC field is really poised for growth.
It is.
And innovation.
It is.
But what about the challenges?
Oh, there are always challenges.
What are some of the hurdles that we still need to overcome?
Well, resistance is a big one.
Okay.
Just like with any cancer therapy, cancer cells can become resistant to ADCs.
Right.
So we need to understand those mechanisms
of resistance so we can develop strategies to overcome
Exactly. It's an ongoing battle.
Yeah, we're constantly trying to stay one step ahead. We are! Of those cancer cells.
We are.
And what about other challenges?
Well, toxicity is always a concern. Even though, Dato-DX has a pretty manageable safety profile.
That's right. It's always a balancing act.
Balance between efficacy and safety.
Absolutely. And with ADCs, we need to be really mindful of off-target effects.
We're delivering such potent payloads.
We are.
Minimizing that collateral damage is really important.
Absolutely.
So what strategies are being used to try to, enhance the safety and tolerability of ADCs?
Well, one approach is to develop antibodies that are more selective.
Okay.
So they bind more specifically to cancer cells.
Less off-target binding.
Exactly.
Less toxicity.
And another strategy is to design linkers that are more stable.
Okay.
So they don't release the payload prematurely.
So it's all about refining that targeting and delivery system.
It is, and that's where a lot of the innovation is happening.
That's where the magic is happening.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, but let's talk about the opportunities now.
Okay.
What are some of the things that you're excited about in the ADC field?
Well, I think one of the most exciting things is the versatility of ADCs.
You know, we can potentially target so many different types of cancer.
As long as we can find those good targets.
As long as we can find those targets that are highly expressed on cancer
cells and not on healthy cells.
Exactly.
So it's all about finding those Achilles heels of cancer. It is those unique vulnerabilities that we can exploit.
Exactly. And I think that's really the power of ADCs. They offer a level of precision and selectivity that we've never seen before in cancer therapy.
And, you know, thanks to advances in genomics and proteomics,
Right.
we're getting better and better at identifying those targets.
We're uncovering new targets all the time.
So it's not just about improving existing ADCs.
No.
It's also about creating new ones that can target a wider range of cancer.
Exactly.
So it's a really exciting field to be
It
in.
is so much potential.
So much